Happy Kimchi Day. Joining me today is John Martin, the Director of the Maryland State Lottery and Gaming Control Agency. I want to begin by wishing all Marylanders a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And as families gather together this week to reflect and count their blessings, I will be giving thanks for the incredible opportunity to serve as your governor these past 8 years. There has not been a single day, good or bad, when I was not grateful for the privilege, and I want to thank the people of Maryland for giving me the most important work of my life and the chance to change Maryland for the better. I am thankful, of course, for my family, for our team here in the governor's office, our cabinet, and the entire Hogan Rutherford administration team all across state government, especially for the members of the Maryland National Guard, many of whom will be serving far from home over the holidays. We can also be thankful for the exciting announcement that brings us here today, which marks the culmination of literally years of effort to get sports betting fully up and running in the state of Maryland. It was 2 years ago, back in November of 2020, when Marylanders voted overwhelmingly to pass a referendum. And 18 months ago, I signed into law legislation which officially legalized sports betting in our state. And since then, our administration has been pushing everyone to implement the voters' decision as quickly and efficiently as possible. We immediately worked to clear licenses for sports betting and strongly urged the legislature's Sports Wagering Applicant Review Commission, or SWARC, to speed up their process on approving these licenses. That resulted in the launch of in-person sports betting nearly a year ago, when I had the chance to place the first bets at MGM, Maryland Live, and Horseshoe casinos. But then it seemed to be just one excuse and one obstruction after another. And when it came to getting mobile sports betting up and running, they allowed the process to be bogged down in bureaucratic, political, and legal delays that threatened to push back the launch of mobile sports betting all the way past the Super Bowl next year. It was inexcusable and completely unacceptable to me, which is why earlier this year I aggressively pushed for clear and definitive action to implement a legal, transparent framework to place mobile bets in order to finally deliver what Marylanders had voted for. We urged them to take a number of immediate, common-sense actions, including prioritizing the awarding of mobile licenses to any of the retail entities named in the original mobile betting legislation, setting a firm and transparent timeline for mobile sports wagering, releasing drafts of the mobile sports wagering application and accompanying regulations so that the industry could begin preparing comments, materials, and responses, applying the same approach to mobile licenses that was used to successfully expedite the facility license awards, and approving mobile sports wagering license applications on a rolling, first-come, first-served basis. Marylanders had been waiting long enough. And in the weeks that followed, we continued to aggressively hold everyone's feet to the fire. As a result, after overcoming all of these hurdles, today I'm pleased to announce that we are formally launching online sports betting in the state of Maryland. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., 7 different sports books will be going live. This process took longer than it should have, but we're excited that this launch is in time for fans to place their bets on all the Thanksgiving Day NFL action, college football rivalry weekend, this week's slate of NBA games, the 2022 World Cup, and this Sunday's Ravens and Commanders games. In addition to allowing Marylanders to bet on the NFL, March Madness, and so much more, sports betting is helping us to keep all of these critical dollars in the state of Maryland, and is providing another critical revenue source for Maryland schools. It's anticipated to bring in up to $30 million in revenue next year, and that total is expected to reach $100 million by 2027. I want to thank John Martin and his entire team at the Maryland Lottery for working around the clock to get this done. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to him for more details on tomorrow morning's launch.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to thank you first and foremost for your leadership, your support, and helping us bring this important legislation to fruition. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank some of our team members at the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency, most notably Jim Nielsen, our Deputy Director, James Butler, our Assistant Deputy Director, and the dozens of Maryland Lottery and Gaming staff who over these last 18 to 24 months, through tireless efforts, have gotten us to where we are today. But we're not done. Our work continues. Yesterday, we completed control demonstrations for 7 entities. Think of this as a dress rehearsal. We accepted live wagering. We made sure the platforms operated correctly and procedures work. Today, we finalized the operational requirements under the direction of our gaming division, Jim Logue and Michael Eaton, to review final accounting and auditing results prior to issuing licenses in support of our 9 a.m. start tomorrow, Wednesday, November 23rd. There were 3 entities awarded licenses last week by SWARC, and they advised us they would not be ready this week. Maryland Lottery and Gaming staff are working closely with all 3 to guide them through the operation requirements they must complete before being given clearance to launch. Now, a timetable has not been set yet for when those 3 entities will be able to launch. Part of our staff will now shift their attention to the next 11 mobile applicants and the 6 facility license applicants. Our investigation and licensing team, led by John Mooney and Phil Metz, will conduct the background investigations and qualify these applicants before SWARC can award a license. Now, this process will take several weeks, but our next qualification hearing is scheduled for Thursday, December 1st, where we expect to introduce 3 applicants for Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Commission approval at that point of qualified status. We then would hope that SWARC will award licenses to those entities at their December 14th meeting. These remaining applicants will move through the process on a rolling basis over the next several months. We anticipate that in late spring, early summer of 2023, prior to the kickoff of the next football season, the Maryland market will include up to 21 mobile entities and between 15 and 20 facility licenses. At that time, we forecast annual tax revenue to be in that $25 to $30 million range that the governor mentioned, contributing, of course, to the blueprint for Maryland Future Fund. With increased gaming options comes increased risks for problem gambling. We encourage all who choose to participate in mobile sports wagering to have a game plan, have some fun, set a budget, and stick to it. All mobile platform providers offer player protections to manage their time and money spent. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER for resources and assistance. Please play responsibly.
Thank you. With that, we'd be happy to take some questions.
Governor, it seems the legislature, the last big events, same-sex marriage, marijuana, recreational marijuana, casino gambling, sports gambling, all gone a referendum. And they've all been very popular. Didn't seem like almost seemed like they're all going to succeed. Help people understand how much does that push back instead of just passing a law and having it done? How much does that push back money coming to the state?
Well, I think, the legislature made a decision to place these on the ballot for referendum, which, I'm in favor of. I think allowing the voters of Maryland to make their own decisions, I think, is a good thing. But that's not really what was slowing down the process. It did take a while before the referendum got passed. But after that, there were, hurdles and slowdowns that probably could have been avoided.
What does the state expect to gain additive with sports gambling going on?
Well, I think we're gonna we're gonna have some much-needed revenues to put into our schools, and this is something that the voters overwhelmingly chose to do in the state, and now we've just got to get it implemented.
Governor,
Yeah,
I have two questions, maybe for Mr. Martin. In terms of the goals that the legislature expressed pretty strongly over a long period of time to make sure that the community of license holders reflected the state's diversity, can you talk about the 7? And I'm curious also, do all 7 of the license holders who go live tomorrow, do they have electronic protections for situations where a gambler may be chasing losses and digging a big financial hole for themselves?
So let me address the first question. Clearly, the legislation, the intent of the legislation was to make sure that there was diversity and inclusion among the license holders, the people who had an equity stake in the business. And as we're all well aware, the first attempts at getting that in place, looking at race, ethnic, and gender issues, was not necessarily something that we could pursue. And so we looked at other options, and that included a change in the application process where we were looking for licensees to have 5% or more participation from individuals with a personal net worth of less than $1.847 million, which allowed us to more equitably level the playing field. And all of the 10 licenses awarded last week by SWARC met that criteria.
And are there any women or people of color in ownership?
Yes.
Can you characterize the number in any way?
Well, certainly we have, most notably, Long Shots, which is a 100% woman-owned business in Frederick. We have Riverboat on the Potomac, which is also minority held. And we saw some very creative ways that people got to their 5% requirement. The folks at Live Casino had a employee sharing program where up to 90 of their employees now are participants in the success. So each one met the criteria for providing the application for the licensing.
And on the problem gambler piece? The problem gambler piece, I mean, will apps know if someone is digging a hole for themselves that they can't? Understanding that people are responsible for
Sure.
their own.
Sure. Well, each app allows you those player protections. So you can set dollar limits, you can set time limits in terms of betting behaviors. So those things are in place in all of the platforms.
I have some practical questions for people who are looking to use these apps. I mean, can I use any app from my couch? Do I have to use a certain app if I live in a certain place? Is there a limit to how much I can bet? Can I drive from Virginia? So if you can kind of walk me through kind of what the experience would be like and what people can and cannot do it.
Sure, sure. Well, first and foremost, they have to be within the geographic borders of the state of Maryland. And they have to then get an app right now. There will be 7 of them available tomorrow, but the potential is to get to 21 apps over the next 12 months. Once they identify which app or apps they want to participate in, they then register with those apps just like you would register in any other platform, and then you fund your account. And again, that funding mechanism allows you to put in place some player protections and guidelines so that you stay within a budgeted amount. But from that point on, the systems are pretty much run by the sports books, and our role as regulators is just to make sure they stay within those guidelines.
Are there any sports you're not allowed to bet on?
Sports you're not allowed to bet on? Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah, I'm sure there are. Again, politics is one example. I mean, several months ago, the industry kind of made a stand against some of the Russian sporting activities going on with the situation with the Ukraine. But each entity, each jurisdiction, Maryland being one of them, we look and evaluate which games we will offer with our sports books. But yes, it sometimes seems like there's too many, but other times some people are looking for others that may not be there.
Governor, you've talked a little bit about, or at least a number of times during these comments, about the slowness of the process. You used the word obstruction. Part of that was the review that was done in an effort to ensure diversity. How much of that review, in your opinion, slowed down the process and perhaps was needed or unnecessary?
Well, I think they were attempting to add different things in that weren't part of the legislation, and it added at least a year to the process, maybe more.
Governor, I have a question for you, and this is in regards to Baltimore City's 300 homicides approaching. What are you saying, what do you think, and what are some of the concerns that you have?
Well, it's same concerns I think we've all had for a long time, and it's a kind of a tragic milestone, but it doesn't come as any surprise. We've gone over 300 murders many years in a row, and it still, frustrates me that many of the things that we could do to stop this still haven't been implemented, and tougher sentences for these repeat violent offenders and the people that are committing the murder so we can get them off the streets. But we've invested more money into Baltimore City than anybody in history, including $1.5 billion into public safety, and given the mayor every single request they've asked for. But it's going to take, getting really bad violent criminals off the streets and prosecuting them. We have a new prosecutor coming in. Hopefully, it's once a focus on that, and then people just actually get in jail time.
Governor, on that, I wanted to ask, have you had any conversations, or do you see any roads to get the Violent Firearm Offender Act through? I know it stalled the last couple of years. We have a new administration coming in. Have you talked to us more about that?
I have, actually. I think hopefully there will be a path. We have been pushing for this for 8 years. It has more than 80% approval of all voters statewide, 87% among Baltimore City residents, because they're the ones most impacted by the violent crime. And I shared all that with Wes Moore and said that perhaps the obstruction that we got from the city leaders, maybe he could have a better job of convincing them how important it was. We've been through 4 mayors and 5 police commissioners and continued to not get them on board. And I think maybe with the new administration and relationship that he'll have a better chance convincing them that they've got to do something about violent crime. It's certainly what all of their citizens want.
Speaking of Baltimore City, last night the City Council approved a pension plan change going from 8 years to 12 years. Do you think that's fiscally responsible? Does it send the wrong message to the city themselves? They fast-track this plan. They take their time when it comes to other legislation dealing with violent crime, but this seems to have no problem getting through.
Look, I think the voters were very clear that they supported term limits. They're not pleased in general with their elected leaders. I think they all have very low approval ratings. And they're not, certainly with hitting 300 murders yesterday, I don't know that they think they're doing an incredible job. And I would say some people would probably argue that they deserve, pink slips instead of pay raises.
Governor, back on sports betting, you talked about placing one of the first bets at a physical location. When this goes live tomorrow, do you plan on placing a bet? What app are you going to use, and who are you going to bet on?
Well, I don't want to, show any favoritism toward any app. It might be unfair, like advertising, but I've never done it before, and and I'm not the most technology-oriented guy, so I might have to get somebody to help me figure out how to put an app on my phone and then use it. But maybe I might place a bet on the Ravens or the Terps or something just to say I did it.
You have that clock on your desk counting down until your time is out. This was one of the big things to get done before you left. What else is left on that list between now and June?
The clock actually stopped, believe it or not, but I think it's something happened to the clock. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not trying to, not leave when the time runs out, but I can't see the click. I think it's down to 58 days or something like that. We're gonna keep doing everything we can. But yeah, we're making announcements and taking actions just about every other day, and we're going to continue to do that for the next couple months.
Governor, do you have any thoughts on the race for state party chair, and any thoughts or advice on positioning for future success?
No, I don't have any thoughts about that at all.
Governor, going back to Baltimore City, do you have any thoughts or comments on the cigarette butt lawsuit the mayor just put in?
I can honestly say I don't know anything about the cigarette butt law that the mayor just put in.
Clarification. So if one has to register in Maryland, say they're traveling to Pennsylvania or Delaware, can you place the bet out of state, or how does that work for them?
No, all of the mobile applications, you must be within the state of Maryland to place a bet. And we have a third-party service that makes sure you're compliant with the geography. So as you can anticipate, and works the same thing with the other jurisdictions, whether you're in Pennsylvania or Virginia, works the same way.
Do you have to pay taxes on your weddings?
Well,
I got big plans for this weekend.
Sounds like Erin's planning on doing a lot of that. She's got a lot of questions.
yes, you do have to eventually pay taxes on your weddings.
Going back to the legislation and looking ahead to the next session, if the Violent Firearms Offender Act or any other tough on crime bills get through after seeing them stall for so long with you here and in the governorship, do you think that politics were at play here if Westmore's able to come in and get it done?
I mean, I hate to speculate or on a hypothetical what might happen or could happen. I just shared my thoughts. We had a great, probably I think it was an hour and 20-minute meeting, one-on-one I had with the governor-elect, and I told him how important I thought it was and how frustrated it was, my top frustration for not getting it done, and that I hoped that perhaps with his relationship with the city, maybe he could finally convince them. So, I'd be happy if it got done. I wish it would have happened 8 years ago.
Last question.
Governor, what are your Thanksgiving plans?
It's Thanksgiving. I over the weekend I had a bunch of family in for early Thanksgiving on Saturday. It's a lot easier to travel when it's not Thanksgiving weekend. And then on Thursday I'll be traveling down to St. Mary's County, to the mother county, the southernmost part of the state, to my daughter Jamie and her family. Jamie, as you may know, was elected state's attorney in St. Mary's County, beat a 22-year incumbent by 42 points, and they have great oysters. We'll probably be eating a lot of oysters, maybe drinking a few beers, and then having a big Thanksgiving dinner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.